Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Refine Your Mind Masterclass. I am so excited that you're here. We are going to dive into how the mind works, how your mindset is formed, and most importantly, refining that mindset so that it supports and aligns with the flow you want to be living in, your beautiful feminine energy, and the desired future that you have for yourself. If this is your first time meeting me, I am Rachel White. I'm a coach, author, guide. I have coaching programs, I have group programs, and so much of my creations and services are in service to enriching the lives of women, allowing them the safe space to feel deeply connected to themselves, to their radiance, to who they are, to their voice, and to how they really want to live their life. At the end of this masterclass, I'm going to talk a little bit about my one-on-one coaching program, Metamorphosis. So make sure you stick around to hear the details on that. I'm going to share my slides that I have created, and we can get into this masterclass. So I would love for you, if there are some golden insights or parts of this masterclass you love, or you just love it overall, I would love for you to take a picture or a screenshot and share it to your stories on Instagram that you have been watching. Tag me at by Rachel White. I would love to thank you for being here and to also see the parts of this masterclass that you love. I really appreciate just seeing the impact that my work has. So I would love to see that you've been watching and that you're enjoying the masterclass and what you're getting out of it as well. Let's go into the mind. I like to visualize my mind as this beautiful art gallery. This is actually a gallery, part of a gallery that I visited in Florence in Italy. And it gives a really beautiful visual of different components that can be inside the gallery within our mind. Our mind has many functions. It has, when we think about the mind, we can think about the brain, the mind, the ego. There are different components. Sometimes those words are used a little interchangeably, but they are different as well. The brain has many functions in communicating messages to our body, to our organs, to our limbs when it needs to move, to our heart, to our digestive system, to all of the functions of the body. And then the function of the mind is to process information, to determine what information is relevant for us to be consciously aware of, and to make decisions when we are in our thinking mind, and to play our thoughts. Our thoughts don't only come from our mind. Our thoughts can come from within our mind, but also externally. And our mind determines what thoughts we hear and also what thoughts are just playing in our autopilot background. And we'll talk more about the subconscious mind as well. The subconscious mind is 95% of our brain's activity, and only 5% is conscious. So imagine your mind as this art gallery. The foundation, so the floor, and you can see the floor in this particular gallery is really beautifully detailed with beautiful art. The ceiling and the floor is. When we think about the foundation, so the floor, even the walls, the concrete, the actual fixture, your mind, the foundations of your mind were formed before you turned 7 years old. So in that first 7-year development period is when your mind was formed and your core beliefs about yourself and about life were formed. And so it's really important to not go straight to just redecorating the pictures that are hanging, to really look at where repairs are needed within the foundation, and to acknowledge that how your foundation formed wasn't necessarily your fault. It absolutely wasn't your fault. There's no blame to put on it. It wasn't even your parents' fault, but it was a product of the life you lived from when you were born to 7 years old. And now that you are an adult that is bringing awareness to how your mind works, it is your responsibility to look at these cracks and look at how you can repair them so that you can have a stronger foundation in your mind, so that you can have stronger presence, more empowering thoughts, and the most enriching life that you want to live. The artwork that is hanging in the gallery, if we keep with this analogy, can shift throughout your life. There can be pieces that are there for decades and decades and decades. There can be temporary photos and pictures and paintings that are hung up and are there for short amounts of time, but then can easily be taken down. Some of like the sculptures that may be in there, like in this image, can be very heavy and less easy to move, but can absolutely be adjusted. You can paint over them, you can chip away some parts of them, but they're heavier to move in their entirety. Whereas some of the pieces are very easy to move, like the frames and the smaller frames in particular. And you can spill things on the floor that are easy to clean up, but then when there's a crack in the concrete of the floor, it's a little harder to fix. So think about your gallery being made up, the gallery of your mind being made up of all of these components. That some parts are really, really set, and that doesn't mean impossible to remodel and change, but some are more easy. And sometimes we stay at this very surface level and only change the really easy things, whereas we really want to explore the entire gallery and what exactly it is made up of, so that we can bring awareness to the parts of our mind that are conducive with the life we want to live, and the parts that need some healing, some tenderness, but also some tough love and just demolition as well. And then when it comes to our mindset, so the set of thoughts that we have about life and in the background of living our life, it all comes from, imagine if you were walking through this art gallery of your mind, what thoughts and what beliefs would be stirred up? And sometimes it is sprung from the core beliefs, and sometimes it is just those core beliefs on a loop. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. So some of the pictures, these are some of the gallery pictures you could have hanging in your mind. And a lot of them will be I am statements. It could be, you could believe that I am a very confident person, or you could believe I am not confident and that's just the way it is. I am beautiful, I am loved, or I am unworthy and I am unlovable. There are these core statements that the identity statements that are hung up all over the gallery of your mind. And some of them are just as simple as that. It's like, I am unworthy. Some of them are a little more detailed. I am unworthy because I have this unfixable, innate part of me that is just forever broken. Blah, 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 blah. The mind can elaborate and make this whole art piece out of a core belief that doesn't actually have truth in it. And this is the thing about the mind, is that the mind always thinks that it is right because it looks for confirmation that it is right. So if you have a belief that you are unworthy, your mind is constantly looking for evidence to prove itself right. And it will find that evidence. The mind is biased against the beliefs it has, and it will always find evidence to support that. And you can see that in every debate, there is for and against. There is always evidence in the world and always evidence you can find to support any statement. So know that even if you have collected all of this evidence over the years to prove a belief you have about yourself, that doesn't actually make it a factual truth. But when it is true to the mind, that is how you then perceive the world and perceive yourself and act in the world as if that is true. In addition to these identity statements, there's also, like I said, the I am and I am not. There's also I have people that support me, or I don't have people that support me. I have enough money. I don't have enough money. And the I have statements are sometimes easier, often are easier to change than the I am statements, because the I am is about our identity. And that is what the mind will cling to the most, whereas it knows that what we have and don't have is more easily able to shift. We also have the like, my limit is, like, this is my capacity, my limit, like I would never make over $70,000 in my life. I will never blah, 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 blah. My limit is something. And that is a part of the comfort zone that our mind creates. And whenever we play at the edge of the comfort zone, so imagine we're at the limited edge of our art gallery, it will have like these signs that say like, turn back now. This is our limit. There is danger outside of this point. And so when we see that, the mind sends a signal to the body to retreat, to go back. And we can do that in self-sabotaging ways. We can do that in physical ways. There are a lot of ways, but the mind sets all of these beliefs and limits and ideas and core beliefs within us. And the mind produces over 50,000 thoughts. Okay, that coming out of there for a second, what I was saying is that the average mind produces 50,000 thoughts a day. And that sounds like a lot. And we don't consciously hear all 50,000 thoughts. A lot of it is playing as the background noise to our life. And 95% of these thoughts are subconscious, that are just playing. Some of the thoughts are conscious when we ask ourselves, like, what should I make for breakfast? I should make this for breakfast. What am I going to do next? Blah, 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 blah. But then we have all of these subconscious thoughts that can be, whenever you notice you're in autopilot behavior. For me, it's a lot of time when I'm driving, not a lot of the time, but I notice it most in those times where I'll get in the car and I'll just, put my key, press the button, put my foot on the brake, put it in reverse, like whatever I'm doing. And then I'll drive somewhere and be like, oh, like I got here so quickly because I went into autopilot. Like I wasn't consciously thinking about what I was doing. And you've probably had situations like that where it's like, maybe when you're scrolling on your phone, it's when we're relaxed and in habit behavior, we have all these subconscious thoughts that are just in our mind, and we may not realize that our subconscious is constantly telling ourselves that we aren't enough for something or that we can't have something. It also is telling us positive things, and that's why it's so easy for us to do certain things. Like if it's a habit to brush your teeth in the morning, you have the belief, I'm a person that brushes my teeth in the morning because blah, blah, blah. And there may not even be a reason, but the mind makes up a reason to justify it. So some of these subconscious thoughts that we're having are very simple, like that I brush my teeth, even though that can be complex as well if there is some dysregulated relationship you have with brushing your teeth. But some of these subconscious thoughts are very destructive, especially when they're not in alignment with what is actually like the truth of our radiance and the truth of who we are as a person. And these destructive thoughts can really play on these loops. So a lot of these beliefs and core beliefs that we have are coming from other people's voices, particularly the people who raised us, the adults that played a really pivotal part in forming our mind when we were a child up to 7 years old, our parents, our extended family. It can even be if we watched a lot of TV and entertainment and just being in the world. And this is why when we look at different generations, a lot of people within the same generation will have a lot of the same programmed beliefs about themselves, because we were programmed by the world we lived in when we were a child, and the world is constantly evolving and shifting. And that's why sometimes different generations have a little bit of conflict, because they have such different core beliefs because of the world that they were raised in and the foundation of the way they believe the world works. And our mindset was more impacted by the intimate relationships we have with our parents, guardians, for example, but the collective definitely had a role in forming this foundation. Sometimes identifying where exactly a limited belief or a limiting core belief we have has come from, like if it is the voice of someone else, if it was from the collective, sometimes it is helpful, because getting to the root of actually acknowledging this actually never came from me and was never actually about me, sometimes that's really empowering. But sometimes going on this like wild goose chase to find who did this to me, why am I like this, can actually be more harmful. And it's more likely that a lot of these limiting beliefs you have within your mindset have been compounded through multiple sources, like your parents and the collective and your friends and your family friends and whatever else, and compounded through multiple sources to create whatever the detail of the core belief you have about yourself is. So just keep that in mind. When it comes to the thoughts that we have, we are always, mostly, I'll say, in reaction to the world around us. Our mind is taking in billions and billions of bits of information in every moment. Like, think about all the things that are just around you right now. Like, your mind, your subconscious mind is actually seeing everything, but your conscious mind isn't aware of anything, because your subconscious and your mindset is determining what is important for your conscious mind to process. And it can only process and perceive a tiny bit. And it's like, if you close your eyes right now, what would you remember? What would you be able to describe in detail for what is around you? And it's like, sometimes if you're in your home or something is familiar, you remember because you're exposed to it so much. But if you go into, just say, like a completely new space, a new room, look around for a minute, your brain, your subconscious has taken in every single thing around you. It's in your mind. But if you close your eyes, your conscious mind will not remember everything. It will remember a tiny fraction of the things, because it will remember the things you consciously noticed, because a part of your mind and a part of your subconscious deemed that as interesting or important for you to notice. Maybe it's something that has been on your mind or that you're familiar with. I remember when I was in high school, in year 9 or 10, I think, we did this practice in a classroom that we like, I went in this classroom every week. I think I had 2 or 3 classes a week in this room, and there were posters all around the room. And the teacher asked us randomly, he's like, close your eyes, and it's like, tell me what color these posters are on the wall. And I think most of us in the class maybe got like a couple of the colors right, but could not remember what exactly was on these posters, even though we looked at them within our vision like every day, every school day. Your subconscious mind is taking everything in, and that can tweak the art on your gallery walls, because your mind can shift to the world it perceives it lives in, but it takes the evidence it wants to prove the core beliefs that it formed from when you were a child. And if you've done reprogramming work, we're going to talk about what reprograms the mind, but things may have shifted from when you were a child, but the foundation was set. And that is really important to know. Okay, let's go to, when it comes to finding out what are these core beliefs I have, because sometimes, because it's happening at such a subconscious level, sometimes we aren't really aware of, sometimes we're very aware of the horrible things we think about ourselves and say to ourselves. But sometimes the actual core of it can be a little hidden, because the mind is a little sneaky, because the mind ultimately wants to keep us safe, which I'm going to talk a little bit about coming up. So getting to the core of the belief and unrooting and unearthing what is actually the core of what is holding me back or making me believe something that isn't aligned with the enriched life that I want to live. Asking the mind questions can be very revealing because the mind is always looking for answers and is always, if we ask the mind a question, it constantly will have an answer. So I'm going to put a couple of 3 questions on this screen and I'll read them out as I put them there. But I want you to be very aware of the instant answer, the instant response your mind has to these questions. So the first one is, why don't you think you're good enough? What was the instant response? Why don't you think you're good enough? Why do you think you are too much? That may sound contradicting, but sometimes the mind is a very contradicting thing because it doesn't, it just has all of these beliefs formed that doesn't actually integrate them all together. So you can think you're not good enough and you can think you're too much at the same time. What do you think you don't have? I want you to notice your instant responses, but then sometimes when we sit with these questions, some more things can rise to the surface as well. Your answer to these questions are likely coming from the voice or from these core beliefs that you decided about yourself at a very young age. And this is revealing to the current programming that you have. And sometimes you may, like an answer may have come up and said something, and your conscious mind immediately steps in and says, that's actually not true. Like, I don't think that about myself. But if it's coming from your mind, then there is a part of you that does have that thought about yourself. And sometimes we can try to hide it and try to mask it. Like, just say there's something on the gallery wall that is actually on the wall. We can try to hang a painting over it with our conscious mind, but it actually doesn't take away that core belief and the impact that that core belief is still having on us. So be very mindful when you ask yourself questions like these, what answers are coming up and how are we trying to shove them down? And can we actually just sit with the answer and sit with the answer? And sometimes sitting with the answer is enough to alchemize it and remove it. But sometimes there is that deeper work needed because it's been such deep conditioning and programming that we haven't really allowed ourselves to sit with and recognize. The questions that we ask ourselves are so important because the questions we ask frames the answers that we receive. If we ask a question, why don't you think you're good enough? That's the answer that the brain is trying to prove why we aren't good enough. Whereas if we shifted the question and asked, why am I good enough? Then the mind has to find an answer and find evidence to support that question. The question frames the answer. And sometimes we can ask ourselves, ask our mind these questions of like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why can't I have what I want? And when we constantly ask the mind these questions in a negative framing, we're always going to get a negatively framed response most of the time. We can build resilience to have positive answers to negative questions, but most of the time, especially when we're in subconscious thought loops, the answers are going to be negatively framed if the question has been. And what that does is just build the evidence bank and build the resistance to shifting whatever the core belief is, because you're constantly proving it to yourself by constantly asking these questions and constantly finding new evidence to support those limiting core beliefs that you have about yourself. So you can have a little play with shifting these 3 questions in a positive framing. How does that change the answers that come up from your mind? And sometimes, if we have very destructive beliefs within our mindset, asking positive questions, sometimes if the mind is very dense in its core beliefs, it can still give us these negative answers. And when I say positive and negative, it's about the charge, right? It's about what is positive in terms of what is conducive with the life we want to live, and negative as in what takes away from the life we want to live. It's not that the mind is right or wrong or good or bad. It's positive and negative, doesn't have morality attached to it. It's simply what is the conditioning of your mind. And bringing awareness to that can bring awareness to where you want to shift. So when you bring awareness to all of that, you can pull back these curtains more to see what the mind is hiding from you, because your mind wants to keep you safe. Your mind full believes with its whole chest that it is the reason you have survived your life up to this point. Your mind tells itself, like, I have made this person survive every single day that they have lived, every challenge they have lived, every obstacle they have survived. They are alive. That is because of me, because I've kept them in check. I've kept their limits, blah, 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 blah. Your ego is so proud of that fact. And we can be so grateful and joyous that our mind has kept us alive, has allowed us to survive. So the mind hides things from you that it knows or that it perceives you don't have the capacity to handle right now. And that is true in some cases, especially if there is trauma or wounded energy involved with how certain core beliefs were formed. The mind knows that if you're in survival mode, you don't have the capacity to sit with your emotions, to sit in silence. But the flaw in that determination from the mind is that the mind can't tell the difference between perceived danger and actual danger. So stressing out over a horrible email that was sent to you and running away from someone with a knife, the mind perceives the same danger. You're in danger either way. You go into survival mode thinking either way. And survival mode thinking limits our capacity for healing and creativity and feeling enriched and feeling really in tune with our emotions. When we pull back the curtain by going into meditation, actually breathing deeply, bringing in practices that signal to the body that I am safe. I am safe right now. There is no danger. I am safe. I have plenty of time. I am okay. When we signal that to the mind and to the body, we allow ourselves to sit in this observer seat and we become aware and become the observer of the thoughts. Sometimes people think when they go into meditation, there shouldn't be any thoughts, but actually we want there to be thoughts because thoughts are a natural part of the mind, and we start to observe the thoughts. There may be more space created between thoughts, but the thoughts that arise allow us to observe them without reacting to them or judging them, so that we can become aware of this programming within our mind. And sometimes simply sitting with it and giving some thoughts the airtime they've been craving and fighting for is enough to let them float by. Sometimes there are deeper things that come up, the more space we allow to sit with these things. And the more we do that, the more we can shift our thinking, our conscious thinking, into affirming to the mind that we are safe. Like, I am safe to sit with these thoughts that don't feel the best, but I'm safe to sit with heavy and dense emotions until they alchemize. I am safe to whatever it is that your mind, whatever reason your mind is determining you aren't safe and that you're in survival mode right now. Can you affirm to your mind that it is safe? And it's a process, it's a journey, because your mind has been formed over the decades of your life. So not everything can be shifted and completely remodeled in an instant. The art gallery cannot be completely redone. Like when I showed you that picture of an art gallery, that was one room within an art gallery. Your mind has thousands of rooms. You can't redo absolutely everything, but you can start with one room at a time, one crack at a time, one painting at a time. and shift from there, and know that it definitely has this compounding effect where the more motion and momentum you bring, the more things accelerate and move at a more effortless pace. So if you are operating from this survival mode, your mind might not feel like a beautifully curated art gallery right now. It may feel like one room is very beautiful and vibrant, but there are all these kind of dark, spooky rooms you don't even want to go into right now. And that's okay. We can acknowledge where we are right now within our mind without judging ourselves, because, you know, we have lived the life we have up to this point. And now we can choose to bring love and grace and care and tenderness to how we move forward with how we treat ourselves and how our mind responds to how we treat ourselves within our life. When you're in survival mode, your mind wants to take control because it thinks that it is the only thing to keep you safe, to take logical action. But the mind, when the mind thinks it's moving through logic, it's actually moving with fear. And fear keeps those limits and keeps those core beliefs in check, again, because it wants you to survive. Whereas when we actually bring safety to the body and to the mind, we can move into leading from our heart and from our body, from love and from intuition. But when the body is in survival mode, the mind wants to take over, wants to take control. So there isn't that safety to make creative decisions, to lead from the heart, to have a deeper trust and faith in moving through things that the mind deems to be illogical. But there is safety there if we shift the mindset to believe that there is. And that's why logic isn't actually logic, because anything can be proven through logic. Regulating the nervous system and healing and reprogramming the mind is a really big part of allowing our body to experience the safety it needs for the mind to have these more enriching subconscious beliefs and thoughts that play on these loops, and for us to lead our life from a place of empowered love, essentially. So there may be reprogramming the mind is really important, but there's also the piece of healing the body. There is a deep relationship between the mind and the body. The mind sends signals to the body sends signals to the mind. While they do have separate functions, they are intrinsically connected as well. So with the answers, those instant answers that came to your mind with the questions I asked a couple of slides ago, when it comes to why don't you believe you're enough? What don't you have? Why are you too much? Thinking of those answers, now I want you just to have a little bit of reflection around, can you see where in your life you aren't being? You aren't being in your body and being in the moment and being yourself. Can you see where you may be playing the victim? And when I say playing the victim, I don't mean that you haven't been victimized in your life by other people, but can you see how you are using that to perpetuate beliefs about yourself that are impacting the action you're taking for yourself now? Can you see where you're holding on to things that are making you the victim in your life? Can you see where you are stopping yourself from getting support and getting the help or the healing or the whatever it is externally that you need? And sometimes these limiting core beliefs can make you think you need to do everything by yourself. Can you see where you may be stopping? And sometimes the support is from yourself as well, from reading a certain book or doing a certain thing that you know is going to support you shift through whatever it is. Can you see where you are putting too much pressure on yourself, where you're just being so damn hard on yourself where you don't need to be? And ultimately, like, what are the limiting beliefs you have about yourself in your life? And some of these limiting beliefs, like I talked about before, may be really easy to take down from the gallery walls, but some may be cracks in the foundation. It doesn't matter where you start with where when your mind brings something up, that's what it feels safe to address now. Sometimes we need to do that more surface level work before we can get to the roots. Sometimes we're taking straight to the foundation and straight to fixing that before we can remodel and adjust anything else. No matter how true you think your beliefs are now, it's only the truth because you believe it. And the truth that your mind thinks can be very limiting to the life and the vision of the life that you actually want to live. And when we connect to our vision, that is coming from our heart space, when we connect to our true vision. And that's why the mind can step in and go no, that is too much for us right now. We cannot handle that vision. So it keeps us from it. But when it comes to looking at the beliefs that we have, what is the actual truth? And when you list out these limiting beliefs you have, actually look at it from an observer point of view. What is the actual truth? If a limiting belief you have in the most simplified core of it is, I am not worthy, what is the actual truth? The actual truth is, of course you are worthy, because you are a human, because you exist, because you make a beautiful contribution in the world, and you are an amazing person, and you are worthy. And if you're worthy of all the things you already have in your life, of course you're worthy of everything else that you want in your life. You are, of course, worthy. That is the actual truth. But what truth you take on is up to you. Well, it's up to your mind. And I'm going to talk about reprogramming in a second as well. The next slide, I think. But we can choose what thoughts we consciously allow ourselves to take in. Subconscious, there needs to be a little bit more work than simply saying that's not true, this is true, because the things that are ingrained to our subconscious are like a physical fixture in this art gallery. We need more than just thinking to reprogram that. So let's go into remodeling your art gallery. There are the two most effective conscious ways to remodel the art gallery is one, repetition. So when it comes to, when we looked at on the previous slide, when we looked at those limiting beliefs and we reframe them to what is the actual truth, making those truths into affirmation statements and repeating them is very powerful. But the repetition is really important. If we think about how our mind was programmed from 0 to 7 years old, the core beliefs that we formed were ones that were repeated to us again and again and again and again and again and again. Think about a child that is learning to walk or to crawl or to hold something in their hand. They learn how to do those things at an automatic level without having to actually exert a lot of effort to do it like we do now, by repetition. They try again and again and again and again and again. Think about how many times you repeat to a child, this is the color red, this is the color blue, whatever else. The repetition allows it to just be so deeply ingrained into their subconscious mind. It's through repetition that our mind learns. Repetition alone can be a very long path. So repeating affirmations is very powerful because it brings it to the conscious mind. It allows the filter of our mind to adjust so that is the evidence we are now seeking. It primes the mind to look for proof of those things we are telling ourselves out in the world. But it is still going to come into a bit of conflict and resistance with the core beliefs that we have. So repeating it allows that resistance to start to soften because of the new evidence we are bringing in, primes the mind to look for that evidence, And over time, the repetition of what is the beliefs that we want to believe, because we get to decide what we want to believe, over time, that repetition remodels and reprograms the subconscious beliefs that we have. The other part is emotion. Emotion is the language of the subconscious mind. And that's why the mind thinks that it is logical, but it is actually very emotional. It can justify anything it thinks with logic, but it's actually using its emotion to determine that logic. When we bring in heightened emotion, that is when the subconscious mind is, the reprogramming is like accelerated to the power of infinity, like so much quicker than just repetition alone. So when it comes to repeating these new beliefs and these affirmations that we form for ourselves, bringing emotion into that, like bringing gratitude and joy and whatever heightened emotion we want to, can really accelerate how long that repetition would take by itself. Sometimes when we come up with these new affirmations, it can just feel like we're painting over old pictures or changing things at a very surface level. But it is still powerful to do that, because over time, it'll come to a time where we think, okay, we need to stop painting over this old painting and just simply tear it down, take it down, and put up an entirely new one. On like our path of remodeling, sometimes, if we're painting over that old painting, sometimes the mind can be a little sneaky and go in with some like paint remover and remove what we've painted over it, so it reverts back to the old beliefs, especially if something old that is like familiar to the old belief kind of triggers it back up. So know that it's not always like this linear path. We can go back and forth, and that's okay, because every step forward is still building like this resilience to the mind to be able to shift, and this like I can't even say that word, this like flexibility to the mind to shift and to be remodeled and to change and to be a little softer even in the air within this art gallery, so that things can shift to be more empowering for us. So these are the conscious ways, and there are passive and unconscious ways to bypass the thinking mind to reprogram the subconscious as well. Some of these things include subliminals. This is where there are affirmation statements being said in music that they're on like a frequency that our conscious mind can't hear. So all we hear is like this music or this sound playing, but these affirmations are being said in that audio that our subconscious mind takes in. And when we listen to them on repetition, that can be a very gentle, passive way to reprogram the subconscious as well. And that is like, subliminals are very powerful. And when you use them in addition to the conscious reprogramming, they can be even more powerful, because it's just an extra support that you give to yourself. There are also healing modalities like kinesiology, EFT, Reiki. A lot of this deals with the subconscious mind by bypassing the thinking mind and going straight into the subconscious. Some of these things you can do on yourself, some having a healing practitioner. Again, I see those things as like support to the conscious work you're doing as well. There are also things like spells and magic, like using sigils and amulets and things like that can help support the remodeling that you're doing and the core beliefs that you really want to ground in to your subconscious mind. Something else that can also remodel the subconscious mind is new trauma or new things that happened in very heightened emotional states. So like grief can alter, and often does alter, our subconscious mind. Like the dense, heavy emotions like grief, heartbreak. A lot of that can, if someone goes through a very like toxic and abusive relationship, especially if it's over a long period of time, that can alter your subconscious mind. So know that there may be these things within your subconscious that did happen as a result of you going through this heightened trauma as an adult. And it's important to recognize that your experiences in life shaped your subconscious mind, but you can, even though you feel like you may have been fundamentally changed by something that happened to you that you didn't necessarily play any role in bringing about, you can give yourself the grace and the softness and what you need now to begin shifting back, or shifting forward, I should say, into how you want your mind to support your most enriched life. And there may be parts of that grief or that heartbreak or anything else that stay with you, and that's okay, because that's part of your experience and part of your journey. It can also be in the other way if there's a very like positive, again, when I say positive, I mean like a lighter charge that's more conducive to the life you want to live, heightened emotional state, like falling in love and just something happening that makes you just so happy and feel so abundant, like whatever brings just such like a very high emotional charge, that automatically shifts something within our subconscious mind, often like to the foundations, to the walls, to the core beliefs that we have about ourselves. The heightened emotion brings the most powerful evidence when we actually feel the shift and feel the truth of a new statement within our body that shifts the subconscious mind. Let's talk a little about gentle contemplation. Everything that I've shared so far, there isn't necessarily anything that you need to do, an action that you need to be taking and trying to force your mind to change and taking a sledgehammer to your mental art gallery and shifting everything. Like, you don't need to do that. Sometimes the most powerful course of action is actually not taking action, but allowing a continuous presence to what it is that we want to shift and what it is that we want to focus on, sit within the back of our mind, to bring gentle contemplation to have a compassionate and graceful, soft hold on what we've brought our awareness to. And when we have that gentle contemplation, we don't force the answers to come out. We don't need to think the answers out. We allow the answers to reveal themselves by pondering, by sitting, by sometimes when we go for a walk or when we're having a shower, these things will just naturally float by into our awareness. And sometimes that will be the shift we needed, or sometimes it will bring our awareness to these gentle actions that we can take. Ask yourself, like, what are the beliefs that are actually going to support you? What are the beliefs that are going to support you live the most flowing, feminine, grounded, desired life that you want to live? And can you get on board with just consciously accepting that they are true now, and knowing that the subconscious needs a bit of time and space to take that on board and to shift, and for you to believe that without having to think about believing it? There are so many things you believe right now that you don't need to think about, because it's just like, duh, obviously. Sometimes we need to bring conscious thought to things and allow it space to be fully programmed into our subconscious, so we don't need to think about it anymore. It is just a truth. Sometimes there is a path laid for a massive leap. Sometimes we just we feel called to take a massive leap without really there being a path laid out or knowing exactly where we're going to end up. And sometimes the most powerful course of action is taking one small step, or even sitting completely still and allowing the next step and guidance on the next step to reveal itself to you. You are not falling behind. You don't need to stretch your body in what feels dangerous, because your subconscious is likely to retreat you back in if you do that. What is something that your body and your mind can get behind now? Start there and be gentle with yourself. Have this gentle, contemplative behavior at the back of your mind, and know that everything will be revealed to you. The more you shift from your mind into your heart, into your body, the answers will be revealed to you and you will know what to do next. You don't need to force yourself into thinking or into action. Which goes into being in the body. Your heart and your body, I said this before, your heart and your body is the better leader for your life than your mind. Being in your body actually helps you think clearly as well. And it's only because when we're in survival mode, the mind thinks that it needs to take control. But the function of the mind isn't actually to be the leader. The function of the mind is to have an identity mindset so that you remember who you are when you're this ethereal being in a human body in the world. Part of the function of the mind is to remind you your identity of who you are as a human in this world. It's to think things through when you need to be thinking. It's to plan, it's to organize. Like your thinking mind, your mind itself has these very important functions in your life, and it isn't designed to be the leader. So when you make it the leader by trying to take control and being in survival mode, it really does crumble under that pressure and just brings forward all of these subconscious limiting thoughts that are just actually not helpful. When you allow yourself space to be in your body and be in your feminine energy is about being in your body. You get to make better decisions and you get to think more clearly as well and be grounded in the beliefs that are actually conducive to the enriched life that you want to live. And I like to think of the mind as this really beautiful art gallery because the feminine, the being part of us, loves aesthetically beautiful things. And my art gallery, like the images I've used are very like vintage, Renaissance, Italian, the gold, the beautiful big paintings and the sculptures, the floor and the ceilings being beautifully decorated. Like that's the aesthetic that I love. You may love a completely different aesthetic, like more minimalist, more eclectic, more colorful, more like modern or abstract. What is the aesthetic of art that you love? And start to visualize your inner mental art gallery in that way, in whatever aesthetic feels good for you. And that will guide you in the art within that gallery that needs to shift what will bring you joy and what will bring you joy to visualize as the beautiful mental place that your mind operates from. Like think of it as the office, the headquarters of your mind. And this can accelerate your reprogramming as well. And then when it comes to leaning into this beautiful aesthetic, we can create these physical anchors within our actual physical reality as well. You can make a collage using like that aesthetic of your mental art gallery with new affirmations, with new beliefs that you want to ground. You can even have them in picture frames. You can build a 3D model of this art gallery if you want. You can do other things like write a song that you sing that have your affirmations. Singing is so powerful. Singing connects our heart to our throat and is healing to the body in many ways. You can put art pieces like on your walls, whether it's in your bedroom, your lounge room, wherever. You can put writing on your mirror. You can add these grounding affirmations and new beliefs that you want to be constantly repeated to you, like consciously. And remember that even just looking at them and then being in your home, your subconscious is taking them in and deeming them important because you have put them front and center in your life. So now we're going to go through for your flow, feminine, and desired future. I've put together some affirmations, some new beliefs for you to take on. But what is the most powerful thing is for you to rewrite them and reframe them in ways that feel like specific to you in ways that you want to take on for your life. If your mind has any resistance to any of these affirmations, to any of these statements, that can be a really powerful point of practice to begin a dialogue with your mind, to give that resistance a voice and ask, like, what is your resistance to this? What is the belief that is creating conflict, that is creating the resistance to me believing this affirmation or this statement that I am saying? And we can bring light and remodel to actually address the beliefs that are there, to what may be hidden within the mind. And we can reshape them to something that the mind can get on board with. Sometimes, for example, the first one, I'm safe. Sometimes the mind may come out with immediate resistance that I'm not safe because I don't have enough money. I don't have this, I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. Or it may be like, I'm safe to do this, but I'm not safe to do this. Like, what is the specific things your mind comes up and what can your mind get on board with? Maybe it's, I'm safe to sit for 5 minutes. Like, what can your mind actually agree with and be like, yeah, actually that is true. And that opens the window for I am safe to be a complete statement where it's like, yes, actually we're safe in all circumstances, in all situations. I am safe. I'm divinely protected. I am safe. You can get more specific. Remember that repetition and emotion is key. So when you go through these affirmations and create your own, sit with presence and repetition, you can write out your list of affirmations, your list of new beliefs that you prime your mind with every morning or every day or however you want to do it. Having that repetition and bringing some kind of present emotion in with it is really powerful. And be patient and trusting in the process as well. And as you live your life with your mind primed to seek evidence for these affirmations, your perspective on life and this subconscious thoughts that are naturally produced will shift. So let's go through the rest of them. I am safe. I have plenty of time. Sometimes the fear of running out of time can be a very detrimental thing to us being in flow within our life. And when I say in flow, I mean things feeling like they are flowing along your story. You're not constantly meeting these road bumps or obstacles that feel like they completely derail you. You may absolutely face challenges and obstacles, but it feels like you can flow through them as part of the journey. So I have plenty of time. Life wants me to succeed and supports me in doing so. Everything always works in my favor. I am a lucky girl. I live an enriched life in all areas. Everything unfolds in divine timing. I am right where I need to be. All is well. All is well. I love that last one. All is well is always what I affirm to myself whenever I'm feeling a little stressed, a little agitated. All is well. I am in the flow. And there may be more affirmations in this realm of being in flow that come to your mind. Feel into the resistance your body has to saying, I am in flow, and listen to what your mind is telling you. You can journal, you can just simply sit and observe and reframe from there. When it comes to the feminine, to being, when I say being in your feminine, I mean being in your being, actually being in your body and fully living the life expressed how you feel called to in any moment, not trying to control your expression. So I get to express all parts of me. I am safe to simply be. Me experiencing pleasure is powerful. My feminine energy is sacred. My expression of the feminine is worthy to receive. I am safe to soften. My body is a beautiful place to live. I am nurturing, loving, fierce in my feminine. All my creations are sacred. My truth has power, so I speak it. Being myself is sacred. And there are so many more beautiful affirmations and beliefs that you can have to ground into being the fully expressed version of you that feels enriching and aligned to who you really are. And if there's resistance, if the way you are being builds resistance, then there may be some inauthentic energy and control in the way you are being. Can you simply be in your energy and move from that space instead of trying to go straight into action and controlled action? The last is desired future. I am worthy of all I desire. I deserve all that I desire. I am competent and capable of the action required in my journey. I am valuable as I am. I deserve the specific desires that I have. If it is on my heart, it is meant for me, and I trust the timing. I listen to my creative impulses. I align my action with my vision. I am open to life delighting me beyond my expectations. It's important to have our vision for our desired future, but also to be open and soft to life completely delighting us and surprising us and just pleasuring us in the most unexpected, beautiful ways. Be mindful of the meaning that you are giving things in your life. When you come to that resistance in your mind between your programmed subconscious and the things you are consciously programming now, be mindful to what meaning you give to that resistance. That resistance doesn't mean I'm just the way I am and I can never change. It means I'm actually making progress, because the resistance is only coming up because the mind is trying to put up a fight, because it knows that I am a powerful being that can remodel the things it has in place, that it thinks are keeping me safe. And I thank my mind so much for trying to keep me safe, but I've got it from here. I'm safe and we can do this remodeling and still be safe. When it comes to the evidence that your mind collects to prove anything, just be mindful of the meaning you are giving things, because that is part of the story your subconscious mind has created from the core belief. So bring that gentle contemplation, bring questioning to it. And when you start to reframe your beliefs, really look at the evidence that your mind is producing back, whether it is like, if your new belief is I am worthy of all my desires, and the mind has evidence to prove that you don't, sit for a moment and look for the evidence that proves that you are of course worthy of all of your desires. The mind can make up these stories. If the mind can make up these stories that you don't deserve something, it can make up stories to prove that you do deserve something. It's all about shifting your perspective and that repetition, that consistency, and that momentum and the motion that you bring to it. So what if all of the evidence and all of these stories that you already have are already proving all the things that you want to be true? It's just that your mind is coming to the wrong conclusion with the same evidence. Like, the evidence can be factual and real, but the conclusion and the moral of the story can be false. So diving into the mind and looking at, why do I believe this thing? Looking at the story and think, actually, this story proves something different. This story doesn't prove that I don't deserve things. It proves that I am so resilient and committed, and that I put so many things in motion for the things that are still coming to me, and it's all going to come to me in divine timing. The most powerful remodeling will be to what feels the most aligned for you. So then the mind may be thinking in these shoulds. I should want this. I should think that. But take that softened step back to be, there's no shoulds here. It's like, what do I want my mind to believe is true, and what feels aligned with the person that I am. So that is all we have for the masterclass. I'm going to go through my coaching offer metamorphosis in one moment, but I want you to really sit with, what is the current state of the beautiful art gallery of your mind? What remodeling feels good? And start with the affirmations that I've given, but also start with observing your mind and noticing the stories and the limiting beliefs that it has, and coming home to what is the truth of what I actually want to believe, and bringing that repetition and emotion and whatever other external support you want to reprogram and refine your mind so that it actually supports you live the most enriching and fulfilled and beautiful life where you get to be the most expressed and full version of you. If you want one-on-one support in going through a journey of really unearthing the subconscious, but also a lot of other parts of the ways you are holding yourself back in life to be the most expressed and enriched version of you, my one-on-one coaching metamorphosis will be such a beautiful experience for you. It's 10 weeks one-on-one. And I've laid out a really beautiful sacred structure to hold the space for this deep inner transformative work. It's like coming into this really beautiful, safe cocoon where you are so supported to emerge as this beautiful, vibrant, radiant butterfly that is so light and that gets to live the art of your life that you want to live. Week 1, we lay the foundations with the vision that you have for your life, what you currently feel like is challenging you. And we look at where are we going within these 10 weeks together. Then we have a mindset reset where we go really deep into the limiting beliefs that are actually within your mind and how to start reframing them. We then go into your body and look at some wounding and trauma that may be living in your body and how to bring some gentle healing and transfiguration and alchemy to that. We go through your creativity and your expression, activating your voice, looking at the fire of your creative energy. And all of this is we get really specific and personal to what is happening within your life and the shifts that need to happen in these areas. We go into rituals and ceremonies that will support you live your life and the vision that you have for your life. Then we go into some heart healing, some self-image. This is a really, really powerful and beautiful week. We look at your service in the world. And if you are someone in business, this will be a really powerful week for you. But even if your service is being a mother or being just a person that exists in the world, there is some really beautiful elements here when we look at how being yourself is the greatest contribution you make to the evolution of art in this world, and really looking at what is so special about you in the way that you contribute to the world around you. We look at the aesthetics of your life, the visuals of your life. Like I mentioned in the masterclass, the feminine, the being part of you loves aesthetic and beauty. So we really dive deep into like looking at your style, looking at your home, looking at all the ways you can tweak the beauty that you surround yourself with and adorn yourself with every day. We look at fine-tuning your vision after the journey you would have moved through over 2 months when we get to week 9. Sometimes parts of your vision shift the deeper you connect in with yourself. So we look at fine-tuning this. And then in our final week, we have reflections and we have space to look at you moving forward after you emerge from this cocoon and fly off into the world. So that's a really beautiful week to have a beautiful reflection on the journey you've been through and to look at how you have fundamentally shifted in the way you will move forward with your life when you leave the safe cocoon container, having my support in them. We have a weekly private coaching call up to around 60 minutes. The calls are recorded for you as well, so you get to re-listen and soak it all in again. You have weekly home play assigned to you every week. I have recorded meditations, some journal practices, some other enriching practices. I always just give 2 practices mostly in each week. There may be 3 in some weeks, but they are things that are very easily incorporated to your daily life to bring that home play to really anchor in what we go through in the call and to prepare you to move forward with those ingrained practices that feel the most aligned for you when you leave the coaching space as well. And then we also have a private chat that we can connect and celebrate you and go through things between calls as well. The investment is $1,000, that's in Australian dollars, and there are payment plans available up to 6 months. So it's a 10-week experience, and you can split that $1,000 payment over 6 months to make it really accessible for you to join now. If this is something that feels like it will be so enriching and valuable and empowering for your life, please reach out to me. If you go on my website, there are full details about it. I can send you the link, and there'll be a link sent with this replay. If it sounds like something that your heart is just saying yes, the application process is very simple. Send me a message sharing. If we already know each other really well, then share whatever you want to share about what you're currently experiencing, what you want to move into, and why you want to join this experience. If you are new to my world, if we haven't necessarily had many conversations before, just share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, maybe some of the work you've already done, or what is drawing you to the experience. And from there, we'll just have a little chat just to see if we are the right fit for each other. And then if we both feel like it's a good fit, we'll move forward and set everything up and schedule in your first call. And there's space for you to start basically immediately. So reach out, please reach out. You can reach out at by Rachel White, or my email, hello@rachelwhitecoaching.com. I'd be so excited to speak with you about joining Metamorphosis. It will be such a beautiful and enriching experience if it's something that you are feeling called to join. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, I would love for you to share your insights on your story on Instagram, or you can send me a private message as well with your reflections and any comments and shares that you have. Thank you so much for being here. Have such a beautiful day. I hope to connect with you and speak with you soon.